idiots! You morons! How stupid can you possibly be?
But I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have you here with me now, so that I may finally exhale this secret from my heart.
The Wrath of God, Part 2.
What does Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all have in common? Comment below. The world's greatest secret is in this envelope. Stay tuned.
Now pay attention.
The moment that got everybody's attention was when the president talked about Iran, nuclear weapons, and the prospect of World War III.
World War III? Of course we're after Saddam Hussein. Bin Laden. He's isolated.
They lie.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell you?
Not much, because it's a secret.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose. World War III?
And Tim, you and I had the same reaction watching together today, and you dropped that expression, World War III. It's going to get people's attention.
And I think it's going to be repeated over and over again on this presidential campaign trail. Brian, why? Republicans would prefer not to debate Iraq. They want to debate Islamic fascism, particularly Iran and a nuclear capability, that they're the party that will have a strong, aggressive response. And in order to prevent World War III, I believe Republican candidates will begin to use that phrase.
We have entered World War III.
What?
World War III?
In World War III.
World War III.
I love black women.
Son, we're on the brink of the next World War.
Facing reporters, the president raised the stakes today about Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons, saying pointedly such ambition could lead to war.
So I've told people that if you're interested in avoiding World War III, it seems like you ought to be interested in preventing them from having the knowledge necessary to make a nuclear weapon.
Must be respectful. Don't let's just throw away questions and statements.
He's been a wolf.
Mr. Obama, you can go to hell.
Today, after 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not.
Me.
A comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
What a stunning, historic mistake.
Iran has reached a historic agreement with major world powers over its nuclear program. But what is Iran giving up? And how does it benefit in the long run? The 109-page document boils down to 5 main areas. Number 1. Iran's uranium stockpile. Uranium is the key ingredient necessary in order to operate a nuclear program. The deal requires Iran to give up 97% of its enriched uranium, taking its stockpile from 10,000 kilograms down to just 300 kilograms. That's much less than what's needed to fuel one nuclear weapon, although Iran maintains the capacity to increase the stockpile quickly. Number 2. Uranium enrichment. Uranium comes in different levels of enrichment. A purity of 90% is what's needed to make a weapon. Per the deal, Iran can still produce a modest amount of uranium enriched at low levels, just 3.67%. And if Iran abides by the deal, enrichment is limited in this way for 15 years. Number 3. Production of centrifuges. Centrifuges are the machines used to enrich uranium. Iran has to give up 2/3 of its centrifuges. Some 19,000 used for enrichment need to be reduced to about 5,000. Iran can also have 1,000 more for research and development. So what this means is, if Iran abides by the deal, for the next decade, it will take Iran at least 12 months to produce enough fuel for a nuclear weapon. And to make sure it doesn't cheat, there will be, number 4, inspections. UN inspectors will be allowed to monitor nuclear and other sites, including military ones, but Iran can challenge requests for access. The inspectors need to provide a basis for concern about undeclared nuclear activity. Any Iranian challenge could delay inspections for up to 24 days. Critics say that could be enough time for Tehran to remove evidence it was carrying out banned activities. So what does Iran get for accepting all of this? Number 5. Sanctions relief. The US, the European Union, and the United Nations will relieve many energy, economic, and financial sanctions against Iran that have been crippling the country's economy. Sanctions will likely lift early next year if Iran complies with the principal requirements in the deal. This is great news for Iran's 82 million people, as it boosts the economy, increase trade, and bring new investment into the country. So what's everyone else saying? The Obama administration and many European allies see the agreement as a major victory for diplomacy between Iran and the West.
This moment has been a long time coming.
Every pathway to a nuclear weapon is cut off.
But the deal has angered some critics in Republican-led Congress and some parts of the Middle East, including Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Way! Yes, way!
The Iranians are very good negotiators. The Persians are always great negotiators. They are laughing at us.
Вы меня рассмешили. Дай вам Бог здоровья, потому что уже конец рабочего дня, так, в принципе, уже спать пора.
Jews spit toward Christians carrying a cross in occupied East Jerusalem this week, an act of religious hatred, igniting a scandal in Israel and beyond. Some ultranationalist and settler leaders say spitting at or near Christians and churches is a legitimate Jewish tradition with a long history. Meanwhile, more than 1,400 ultranationalists and settlers entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex on Wednesday under Israeli police escort. They're seeking to establish a clear Jewish presence in one of Islam's holiest places. Non-Muslims are allowed entry on certain days of the week and at certain times, but not allowed to pray. But some parties in Netanyahu's right-wing government want to upend the decades-long status quo to allow Jewish prayer at the site, a confrontational move that Palestinian officials say would lead to an explosion of violence.
This is Israeli police video from last night in Jerusalem. Fireworks going off during a police raid at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Police say...
And may the Christian Lord guide my hand against a Roman popery. Prepare to receive the true Lord.
Shall be ashamed of me!
Поеду домой с хорошим настроением.
When we watch the news and see reporters talking about the conflicts that are playing out across the Middle East, we hear a lot about fighting between the Sunnis and the Shiites, the two main sects of Islam. But many of us have no idea what the difference between the two groups is and why there is so much friction between them. So let's take a look at some of the history and the geopolitics to get a sense of what is really going on. There are 1.6 billion Muslims across the world. Roughly 85% of them are Sunnis. The division of the Prophet Muhammad some 1,400 years ago as a disagreement about who should succeed him. The Sunnis felt that Abu Bakr, a close friend of the Prophet's, ought to be the next Muslim leader. But the Shiites claimed that Muhammad had anointed his son-in-law Ali as rightful successor. The Sunnis won out, but a split was born, and that rift was cemented when Ali's son was later killed by the ruling Sunni troops, an event which the Shiites commemorate every year. Fast forward more than 1,000 years, and the situation is worse than ever. According to a poll by Pew Research, some 40% of Sunnis don't even regard Shiites as real Muslims. But there's more than theology at work here. Perhaps even more important is geography. 100 years ago, around the time of the First World War, the Middle East was carved up in a Franco-British pact called the Sykes-Picot Agreement. But the Europeans had little interest in understanding the religious and ethnic intricacies of the Middle East when they divided up the region. Still, these arbitrary borders became the blueprint for today's map. The Shiites were divided primarily among Iran, Iraq, and Lebanon, with an offshoot of Shia Islam, the Alawites, in Syria. This area has come to be known as the Shia Crescent. Sunni Muslims make up the bulk of the population of other countries in the region, with pockets of Shiites scattered among them. As you might expect, problems arise in countries where both sects are vying for power or one group feels oppressed. In Syria, for example, a Sunni majority has been ruled for the last 45 years by an Alawite minority. In Iraq, a Sunni minority ruled over the Shiite majority for decades. After the U.S. invasion, Saddam Hussein, a Sunni, was overthrown and a Shiite government took over. That government proceeded to marginalize the Sunnis, and now some of those disenfranchised Sunnis have gone on to form the so-called Islamic State, or ISIS. Now let's do a quick who's who in the Middle East. As you just heard, ISIS, along with Al-Qaeda, are Sunni groups. Hezbollah is Shiite. Osama bin Laden was a Sunni. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is an Shiite sect, and the Iranian mullahs are Shiites as well, which helps explain why Iran has gotten involved in the conflict in Syria. And where does America stand in all this? Traditionally, the U.S.'s strongest allies in the region have been Sunni powers, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Jordan. But now the U.S. is pursuing a nuclear deal with Shiite Iran and is working alongside Shiites in Iraq to try to destroy ISIS. But at the same time, Washington still supports Saudi Arabia, which is currently bombing Iranian-backed Shiite rebels in Yemen. Confused yet?
We're supporting troops that we don't even know who they are. We're supporting troops that we don't even know who they are. We have no idea who they are.
At the end of the day, it's important to remember that the majority of ordinary Sunnis and Shiites do not hate each other, and both groups share the same core tenets of Islam. In a sense, it's similar to the differences between, say, the Catholics and the Protestants, and the fighting and the bloodshed that we're seeing across the region are less about religion than they are about power.
If a husband rapes his wife, is that domestic abuse? Should the man be punished or should the woman be punished for that, in your opinion? If he forces sex upon his wife. I think we both know what rape is. Do you think that women should be allowed...
أنا صح إنني هربت من أهلي صح أنا ما عاد أشتي عندهم خلاص أنا أشتي أعيش عند عمي إيش براءة الطفولة إيش ذنب الأطفال من تتزوجوهم كذا يعني مثلا أنا بحل مشكلتي صح بس بعض الأطفال براءتهم ما يحلوش مشكلتهم يمكن يموتوا يمكن ينتحروا يمكن يفعلوا اللي براسهم لأنهم أطفال ما يدروش بحاجة يعني عندهم ما تعلموش ولا درسوا ولا حاجة يعني إيش ذنبنا هنا مش الوحيدة يعني يمكن كل الأطفال في ناس كثير بعض الأطفال يعني دبزوا بنفسهم في البحر ما عم باغي يعني إيش البراءة هذه ما إيش براءة صح إنني هربت من عند عمي ما كانش موجود فأني اتصلت لعبد الجبار يجيبني وعبد الجبار جاب لي بنت وسافرت أنا إياها للحديدة وعمي لما عرف بالموضوع أجاني وكمان أمي تشتد بلغت علينا الشرطة أنا عمري 11 سنة وتشتد تزوجني يعني ما فيش حياة ما فيش تعليم ما فيش قوة ما فيش بين قلبهم رحمة إيش هذه التربية معهم الموت أرحمني إنني أموت ولا أبقى أنا أفضل أن أكون عند عمي ولا أفضل عندهم يقتلوني يهددوني يقولوا لي إذا رحتي عند عمك بنقتلك يعني إيش هذا إيش تهديد يهددوا الأطفال يرضيكم زيي أنا كذا ها يزولوني يرضيكم وكمان أنا عادي القتل عندي عادي ولا أعيش عندهم قتلوا أحلامنا قتلوا كل شيء اللي فينا يعني ما باقي هذه ما هي عاد تربية هذه قدرناها إجرام خالتي وهي خالتي عمرها 13 سنة، فقلت سنة مع زوجها وكبت الغاز وتروشت به وماتت. يعني كان يشل الحدايد والحدايد هو يسكر وبينه مرض وبينه كل شيء. يعني يرضيكم انه يعني يتزوج، يرضيكم. يا أم اقنعي مني، يا أهلي اقنعوا مني، أنا ما اشتيكمش خلاص، دمرتوا أحلامي كلها دمرتوا.
والله may Allah forgive you. May Osama bin Laden forgive you. May Osama bin Laden forgive you. والله جهاد في سبيل الله. أسامة أنت ولد يا رجال. يا من أسامة أنت ولد. لا إله إلا الله. والله we will be with them. We will take revenge on you. Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. Allah. Of Denmark, so we can invade their country and take their wives and walk with it. Denmark, so we can invade their country and take their wives and walk with it. Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar!
Who's doing the raping?
Muslims, brother.
Who's doing the raping?
Because he's a radical Islamic group of people that is brutal. They chemically
Muslims, brother, chemically
all those races, colors, and creeds. Every man bleeds.
بل يجب أن تبقى الممرات الإنسانية مستدامة وآمنة، ولا يمكن القبول بمنع الغذاء والدواء والمياه والكهرباء عن أهل غزة، فهذا السلوك هو جريمة حرب يجب أن يدينها العالم.
و اون که جلوی آتش بس رو گرفته امریکایی ها هستن، اون که داره دامنه جنگ رو توسعه میده امریکایی ها هستن، ریشه همه این مفاسد امریکایی ها هستن.
A few years ago, I stood here with a red marker to show the curse, a great curse, the curse of a nuclear Iran. But today I bring this marker to show a great blessing, the blessing of a new Middle East between Israel, Saudi Arabia, and our other neighbors. We will not only bring down barriers between Israel and our neighbors, we'll build a new corridor of peace and prosperity that connects Asia through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel to Europe. This is an extraordinary change, a monumental change, another pivot of history. But I also believe that we must not give the Palestinians a veto over new peace treaties with Arab states. Sanctions must be snapped back. And above all, Iran must face a credible nuclear threat.
Are you concerned, though, Iran gets a nuclear weapon, about them getting a nuclear weapon?
Well, we are concerned of any country getting a nuclear weapon. That's a bad move. And you don't need to get a nuclear weapon because you cannot use it. Even if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, any country use a nuclear weapon, that means they are having a war with the rest of the world. The world cannot see another Hiroshima. If the world see 100,000 people dead, that means you are in a war with the rest of the world. So it's a useless effort to reach a nuclear weapon, because you cannot use it. If you use it, you got to have a big fight with the rest of the world.
If they get one, will you?
If they get one, we have to get one.
Thank you all. Hallelujah. Clap to your president. Clap to your president right now.
I mean, this is absolute nonsense. It will create an arms race.
Well, specifically where? A lot of people, Mr. Claridge, have talked about Saudi Arabia. They certainly have more money than anybody in the Middle East. Are you concerned about the possibility they may get a nuclear bomb?
Saudis already have the bomb.
What?
But people fail to remember.
Hold on a second, Mr. Claridge. Let me just emphasize that point, because that's an important point. You say Saudi Arabia already has a nuclear bomb?
Several.
From where did they get it? They don't have a nuclear program, do they?
Well, people forget that it was the Saudis who financed the Pakistani bomb. They put billions of dollars into that effort to create that nuclear capability. And in return, of course, they got something. Now, people can argue whether it was dibs on 4 nuclear devices or 7. That's the argument. But no one really in the know argues that they do have access to nuclear weapons.
As Iran gets ready to possibly curb the weapons potential of its nuclear program, its regional rival Saudi Arabia watches closely. Over the years, one of the ways the Saudis tried to neutralize a potential Iranian threat was reportedly by looking towards their strategic ally Pakistan. The South Asian country is in an unusual position. On one hand, it has sold nuclear secrets to Iran. On the other hand, Pakistan is said to have promised a nuclear umbrella to Iran's rival Saudi Arabia. While this allegation was never proven, it may have stemmed from the history of Pakistan's nuclear program.
الجيش العربي السعودي هو يمثلنا نحن السعوديين. لماذا نحن نشتري هذه الصواريخ وهذه الطائرات وهذه؟ نحن لدينا قنبلة نووية. منين؟ التجربة النووية ربما تعمل خلال أسابيع. لماذا نحن نمتلك هذه الأسلحة؟ لماذا؟ إن لم يكن دفاعا عن الحق العربي ودفاعا عن الحق الإسلامي ودفاعا أخي الكريم، السعودية لا تريد الدخول في حرب.
السعودية أصبحت تمتلك قنبلة نووية.
الشعب السوري نعم نمتلك القنبلة النووية. نعم بكل بساطة نعم نمتلك القنبلة النووية.
هذا خبر عاجل على أول مرة أسمع.
أخي الكريم ليس خبر عاجل. القوى الكبرى تعرف أن يعني نحن كنا نقول أنه إذا إيران قامت بإعلان التجربة النووية بوقاحة سوف تقوم المملكة العربية السعودية بإعلان التجربة. لا مشكلة.
If they get one, will you?
If they get one, we have to get one.
My Muslim faith.
They say the deal lifts all economic pressure on Iran and worry that this windfall will increase Tehran's funding of organizations like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Assad regime in Syria. They also say the deal only curbs Iran's nuclear program for 10 to 15 years, allowing Iran to move back to the brink of nuclear weapon status without paying any price.
The whole Iran deal is the dumbest deal that you can imagine. I think it's going to go down as one of the worst deals in the history of this country, maybe of the world. It is a total and complete catastrophe. And, you know, it's beyond even talking about it. So it's hard to believe that people actually, do we have negotiators? Do we have anybody that knows what they're doing? Not only the 24 days, which, by the way, it's much more than that, because the 24 days to start the clock takes a long time. Not only the fact that they still have our prisoners, every single aspect of that deal is incompetent. And it's a deal that shouldn't be approved. And the amazing thing is, even if it's not approved now, they get $150 billion plus.
Grab him by the pussy.
And they're going to use that money for terror all over the world. It is one of the great dumb deals of our time.
Locker room talk.
Thousands of rockets fired at Israel. That is not cheap. All adding up for Hamas. It's designated a terrorist organization by the U.S. and EU. That means they can freeze Hamas's assets and aid can be blocked. So where does Hamas get its money? It's a patchwork of taxes on Gaza's commerce, money from Iran and other countries, and even crypto.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. We will not allow a regime that chants death to America to gain access to the most deadly weapons on earth. The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them.
اگر اروپا و کشورهای مهم مثل روسیه و چین این خلأ بین المللی را پر کنند شاید راهی برای ادامه مسیر باشد. در غیر این صورت جمهوری اسلامی با اقدامات هسته‌ای خود ایشان را سر عقل می آورد. و این را بدانند که در چنین شرایطی ایران هیچ تعهدی ندارد که در جایگاه گذشته خود در مسئله هسته‌ای قرار بگیرد.
Ground zero. So this is where the first guy got AIDS.
Peter, this is the site of the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
Oh, so Saddam Hussein did this?
No.
The Iraqi army?
No.
Some guys from Iraq?
No.
That one lady who visited Iraq that one time?
No, Peter, Iraq had nothing to do with this. It was a bunch of Saudi Arabians, Lebanese, and Egyptians financed by a Saudi Arabian guy living in Afghanistan and sheltered by Pakistanis.
So you're saying we need to invade Iran?
So what's the world's greatest secret?
Well, you can start by checking out The Wrath of God Part 3.
Subscribe, like, hit that notification bell so that you can get schooled by the Pompous Nerd. Don't forget to sign up for Pompous Nerd's OnlyFans or Patreon accounts so that you can get exclusive access to the complete episode of The Wrath of God, as well as access to
Holy Wars! You idiots! You morons! How stupid can you possibly be?